What happens when your own family tries to take away everything you hold dear? Evelyn faced losing her home when her daughter-in-law plotted her eviction, but what Evelyn discovered next turned the tables completely. Evelyn stood motionless, the eviction notice trembling slightly in her hands. The crisp paper felt heavy, each word stamped firmly in bold ink as if mocking her disbelief. Behind the ornate glass front door, she could hear the muffled voice of Lisa, her daughter-in-law, chattering cheerfully on the phone, oblivious or perhaps indifferent to Evelyn's distress. A cool evening breeze brushed against Evelyn's face, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts spun wildly. It had only been 5 years since she'd moved into this home, a generous gesture from her son, Michael, after her husband Henry passed away. "You'll always have a home here," Michael had assured her, and she had believed him completely. But ever since Michael had married Lisa 2 years ago, Evelyn had felt her presence diminish within the walls she had grown to love. Small changes had come first, subtle alterations Evelyn initially dismissed. Her favorite armchair vanished without explanation, replaced by sleek, modern furniture that lacked warmth. Family photographs were discreetly replaced with abstract paintings. Each small decision felt deliberate, quietly erasing her history within the home, piece by piece. "Evelyn!" Lisa's voice sliced through her thoughts. She appeared in the doorway, her slim figure draped casually against the frame, a slight smirk playing on her glossy lips. "Is everything all right?" Evelyn hesitated, gripping the paper tighter. "Lisa, did you know about this eviction notice?" Lisa took a step closer, her expression unreadable. She glanced casually at the document. "Oh yes, that. Well, we thought it would be kinder to give you some warning, considering everything." "Kinder?" Evelyn echoed, feeling a sudden wave of nausea. "How can evicting me from my own son's home possibly be kind?" Lisa sighed, shaking her head slightly as though dealing with an unreasonable child. "Look, Evelyn, Michael and I need our own space now. We're planning a family, and well, surely you understand." "Understand?" Evelyn's voice quivered despite her best efforts to remain composed. "Did Michael agree to this?" Lisa shrugged delicately, her manicured fingers tapping lightly against her thigh. "Of course. This was his idea as much as mine. It's time to move on." Lisa's phone buzzed softly. She glanced at the screen and smiled faintly, turning away as she answered cheerfully, leaving Evelyn standing alone on the porch, forgotten like an unwanted piece of furniture. Inside, Evelyn moved through the familiar rooms with new eyes, noticing each painful detail afresh. Her gaze fell upon the dining table, a gift from Henry on their 25th wedding anniversary, now set aside and used only for occasional storage. She paused, tracing her fingers across its neglected surface, each scratch and mark echoing a happier memory. Michael arrived home late, his footsteps echoing quietly as he entered the kitchen. He froze momentarily upon seeing Evelyn seated at the table, hands folded neatly in front of her, eyes fixed accusingly upon him. "Mom," he started cautiously, setting down his briefcase, "we need to talk." "Yes," Evelyn replied steadily, keeping her gaze firm. "I believe we do. Did you really agree to this eviction?" Michael shifted uncomfortably, unable to hold his mother's gaze. "It's not an eviction, Mom. It's just, we think it would be better if you found somewhere else to live. Lisa and I need space." "Space?" Evelyn repeated incredulously. "So your solution is to remove me from the home you promised would always be mine?" Michael hesitated, running a hand nervously through his hair. "Things change, Mom. You can't expect everything to stay the same." "Clearly," Evelyn said coldly, rising slowly from her chair. "I see that now." Michael watched helplessly as Evelyn walked past him toward her room, each step heavier than the last. She closed her bedroom door softly, leaning against it and shutting her eyes tight against the burning tears. Her eyes fell upon the small desk near the window, cluttered with old mail and personal documents. She moved instinctively towards it, pulling open a drawer and reaching inside. Her fingers brushed against a thick envelope, and slowly she drew it out, staring thoughtfully at the aged paper, marked with her name. Evelyn sat carefully at the edge of her bed, hands shaking as she opened the envelope. Her eyes scanned the contents, a sense of clarity slowly washing over her. Lisa had made one critical mistake, and Evelyn now knew exactly what it was. The morning sunlight streamed through Evelyn's window, illuminating the scattered documents still laid out across her bed. She hadn't slept much. Instead, she'd spent the night revisiting memories and gathering resolve. Now, each piece of paper felt like a lifeline, a shield against the injustice creeping steadily closer. Downstairs, she heard Lisa's high-pitched laughter followed by the familiar rumble of Michael's voice. They were discussing wallpaper choices over coffee, as if Evelyn's eviction were nothing more than a trivial inconvenience. She dressed carefully, each movement deliberate and filled with a quiet determination. Evelyn descended the stairs slowly, pausing only briefly as she caught sight of them at the kitchen table, heads bent together conspiratorially over a catalogue. Michael glanced up first, visibly startled by her calm presence. "Good morning," Evelyn said evenly, her voice betraying none of the turmoil she'd endured. Lisa glanced up casually, her eyes briefly narrowing. "Morning, Evelyn. Sleep well?" "Very well," Evelyn replied softly, her gaze lingering on Michael. "I'll be out today, sorting some matters." Michael's eyes clouded with momentary concern, but Lisa quickly interjected. "That sounds wonderful," she cooed, sliding the wallpaper catalogue toward Evelyn. "Maybe you could pick something nice for your new place." Ignoring the barb, Evelyn simply nodded and turned to leave, feeling Lisa's gaze burning into her back. She drove carefully across town, each familiar street sparking memories. Her destination was the small office of Peter Reynolds, her longtime family attorney. Peter had assisted Henry and Evelyn with their legal matters for decades, becoming a trusted confidant and friend. The bell above the office door chimed softly as Evelyn stepped inside, finding Peter sitting behind his cluttered desk, his silver-rimmed glasses perched precariously on his nose. "Evelyn," Peter greeted warmly, immediately sensing something was wrong by the tension in her posture. "Come, sit." Settling into the worn leather chair, Evelyn carefully unfolded the documents she'd brought, placing them neatly before Peter. "Lisa and Michael are evicting me," she explained, her voice remarkably steady despite the emotional turmoil beneath. Peter's brow furrowed deeply as he listened, taking notes and carefully examining the papers she'd handed him. "But this house was bought partly with funds from Henry's estate, correct?" "Exactly," Evelyn confirmed, her voice gaining strength. "Henry intended to secure my future. Michael knew this. He agreed explicitly." Peter nodded slowly, tapping his pen thoughtfully against his chin. "Do you still have the documents from the original purchase? Anything with your name specifically listed?" "Yes," Evelyn replied, handing over another carefully preserved folder. "Henry always insisted we document everything." Peter carefully unfolded the old paperwork, scanning each line meticulously. Finally, he looked up, eyes brightening slightly with confidence. "This may indeed be your saving grace, Evelyn. According to these papers, your name is clearly listed as co-owner on the original deed. Michael had no legal grounds to proceed without your explicit consent." Evelyn exhaled slowly, relief flooding through her, tempered only by a lingering sadness. "I never thought it would come to this." Peter reached across the desk, patting her hand reassuringly. "We'll handle this carefully. For now, gather everything related to the property and your financial contributions." As Evelyn stepped back into her car, determination replaced despair. She had allowed herself to become invisible, but no longer. It was time to reclaim her dignity. Returning home, Evelyn found Lisa still poring over interior design samples, completely unaware of Evelyn's newfound resolve. "Did you have a nice outing?" Lisa asked absently, barely looking up. "Very productive," Evelyn responded calmly. "You'd be surprised what you can uncover when you know where to look." Lisa glanced up sharply, something uncertain flickering briefly across her face before she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "I'm sure you're right." As Evelyn ascended the stairs once more, a subtle shift had occurred between them. Lisa's unspoken confidence had faltered for just a moment, and Evelyn had noticed. She reached her room and carefully locked the door behind her, placing her documents safely away in her dresser. She took a deep breath, feeling stronger than she had in months. One thing was abundantly clear: Lisa had gravely underestimated Evelyn's resolve. The next morning began deceptively calm. Evelyn rose early, preparing breakfast methodically, savoring the comforting routine despite the turmoil bubbling just beneath the surface. From the corner of her eye, she noticed Lisa entering the kitchen, pausing momentarily when she saw Evelyn already there, composed and unbothered. "Good morning, Lisa," Evelyn greeted evenly, setting plates calmly onto the table. Lisa hesitated, momentarily taken aback by Evelyn's unshakable calmness. "Morning," she finally murmured, quickly regaining her usual composure and pouring herself coffee. Michael joined them moments later, distractedly buttoning his shirt cuffs. His gaze flicked uncertainly between Lisa and Evelyn, clearly sensing the unusual tension that hung in the air. Breakfast passed mostly in silence, the clinking of silverware and soft hum of appliances the only sounds filling the strained quiet. Lisa occasionally shot Evelyn veiled glances, her expression unreadable. Evelyn, however, remained perfectly poised, betraying none of her inner determination. After breakfast, Evelyn excused herself quietly, retreating upstairs to continue sorting through old papers and documents, diligently organizing evidence she'd need. Each photograph, each paper she touched reminded her vividly of happier times, of family bonds that had once seemed unbreakable. A knock at her bedroom door startled her from her reverie. She quickly hid the papers before opening the door to find Michael standing hesitantly in the hallway, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and uncertainty. "Mom, we should talk," Michael started awkwardly, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I'm sorry things turned out this way, Lisa, and I didn't mean for it to be so abrupt." Evelyn regarded her son quietly, noting the genuine discomfort etched in his face. "Yet it was, Michael," she replied softly. "I understand you have a new life to build, but there's a right and a wrong way to handle things." He nodded slowly, his shoulders slumping slightly. "I know. It just got complicated." "It always does," Evelyn agreed quietly, her tone gentle yet firm. "But remember, I'm still your mother." He glanced up, his eyes shimmering briefly with regret. "I'll talk to Lisa. Maybe we can figure something out." Evelyn merely nodded, her face betraying none of the hope that Michael's words had sparked. Later that day, Evelyn made another visit to Peter Reynolds' office, providing additional documentation she had uncovered. Each document strengthened her position, providing irrefutable proof of her rightful place in the home she had cherished for years. "I've prepared everything necessary," Peter assured her, carefully reviewing the gathered materials. "If Michael and Lisa insist on pressing forward, we'll be ready. But remember, Evelyn, battles like these are seldom without pain." "I know," Evelyn acknowledged softly, the weight of what lay ahead heavy upon her. "But sometimes, fighting back is the only option left." Returning home, Evelyn felt a palpable shift. Lisa greeted her coolly at the door, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Evelyn, could we speak for a moment?" "Of course," Evelyn responded evenly, stepping into the living room. Lisa paced briefly before facing Evelyn directly, her eyes sharp and calculating. "Michael says we might have been hasty. But I want you to understand, Evelyn, this isn't personal." "It feels personal," Evelyn responded quietly, meeting Lisa's intense gaze. "This home isn't just bricks and furniture. It's filled with memories, my life, my husband's life, and our family's history." Lisa sighed dramatically, clearly frustrated. "We need to find a solution that works for everyone." Evelyn remained steady, her voice calm yet resolute. "Perhaps the first step is understanding that this decision affects me profoundly. A simple conversation would have spared everyone much distress." Lisa's jaw tightened slightly, her patience visibly thinning. "We'll discuss it further. For now, let's just keep things civil." "Agreed," Evelyn said evenly, holding her ground firmly yet gracefully. As the conversation ended and Lisa stalked off toward the kitchen, Evelyn felt both drained and strangely empowered. She returned to her room, closing the door softly behind her and sitting quietly by the window. The house below remained deceptively peaceful, unaware of the storm quietly gathering strength within its walls. She had stood her ground, asserted her dignity, and spoken her truth clearly. Evelyn knew, deep within herself, that she had taken the necessary steps to reclaim what was rightfully hers. But even as a sense of quiet confidence settled over her, Evelyn couldn't shake the unsettling realization that the hardest part of the battle was yet to come. Days slipped by slowly, tension threading through the house like an invisible current. Evelyn kept busy, maintaining her calm exterior even as Lisa grew noticeably more agitated, pacing frequently and snapping at Michael over trivial matters. One rainy afternoon, As Evelyn was preparing tea, she overheard raised voices coming from the study. She paused, teapot in hand, instinctively leaning closer to the slightly ajar door. "Michael, this situation is impossible," Lisa hissed urgently, clearly unaware Evelyn was nearby. "Your mother is playing us, pretending everything is fine while plotting something behind our backs." "I just know it." "Lisa, you're imagining things," Michael sighed wearily. "My mother wouldn't do that. She's just upset, understandably so." "Oh, open your eyes," Lisa snapped. "Evelyn's far more cunning than you give her credit for." Evelyn stepped back silently, her heart pounding uncomfortably. She placed the teapot gently down, her hands trembling slightly. She had hoped for a peaceful resolution, but now Lisa's words left little room for doubt about the severity of the rift forming between them. Later that evening, Evelyn took another careful inventory of her personal papers, ensuring every document was safely secured. Each page felt heavier than before, laden with emotional and legal significance. She locked the drawer securely, taking a deep breath to steady herself. The following morning brought a surprise visitor. Evelyn opened the front door to find her neighbor, Margaret, holding a tray of freshly baked muffins. Margaret's normally cheerful face bore a worried expression. "Evelyn, may we speak privately?" Margaret asked softly, her eyes darting anxiously around. "Of course," Evelyn replied, ushering Margaret inside. They settled comfortably in the living room, the muffins momentarily forgotten. "I don't mean to meddle," Margaret began hesitantly, wringing her hands, "but I overheard Lisa talking to someone on the phone yesterday. It sounded concerning, Evelyn. She mentioned something about legal steps and making sure everything was in her favor." Evelyn's stomach twisted uncomfortably. "Are you certain that's what you heard, Margaret?" Margaret nodded solemnly. "Quite certain." She seemed very determined. Evelyn thanked Margaret warmly, her mind racing with fresh concerns. As Margaret left, Evelyn stood quietly at the window, processing this new information. Lisa's behavior was escalating rapidly, making it clear that peaceful coexistence was becoming impossible. Determined to clarify the situation, Evelyn confronted Lisa directly later that afternoon, finding her alone in the garden, angrily pruning roses. "Lisa, we need to discuss something," Evelyn stated firmly, her voice even and calm despite the anxiety churning inside her. Lisa spun around sharply, clearly startled. She quickly masked her surprise with irritation. "What now?" she asked, clipping the shears harshly against a branch. "I've heard some unsettling things," Evelyn continued steadily, choosing her words carefully. "I think it's time we cleared the air." Lisa dropped the gardening shears onto the bench and crossed her arms defensively. "If you've heard something, Evelyn, perhaps it's because you've been listening to conversations that don't concern you." "This house, my home, very much concerns me," Evelyn responded coolly. "And I will not stand by while secrets and whispers threaten it." Lisa's eyes narrowed dangerously, her voice dropping lower. "You're not as innocent as you pretend to be. I know you've been meeting with your lawyer. If you're trying to fight this, you'll regret it." Evelyn didn't flinch. "Is that a threat, Lisa?" "It's a warning," Lisa snapped, turning sharply away and marching back toward the house. That evening, Evelyn shared Margaret's information with Peter Reynolds. He listened intently, taking detailed notes. "This may complicate matters," Peter warned carefully. "We need to act swiftly, Evelyn. If Lisa is preparing a case, we should be ready first." Evelyn nodded, determination hardening within her. "Whatever it takes, Peter. I won't lose my home without a fight." Returning home late, Evelyn noticed a light still on in the study. Approaching cautiously, she found Michael alone, staring blankly at a stack of papers scattered across his desk. When he saw Evelyn, his shoulders sagged visibly. "Mom, I didn't want it to come to this," Michael confessed quietly, his voice thick with genuine remorse. "But Lisa is relentless. She says we must take action now or risk losing everything." "Everything?" Evelyn echoed softly, sadness coloring her voice. "Michael, I've never threatened what's rightfully yours. All I ask is respect and fairness." He looked up, eyes weary and conflicted. "I know, Mom. I just wish Lisa saw it that way too." Evelyn left Michael in the dim light of the study, retreating quietly to her room. She knew clearly now that lines had been drawn, sides chosen. Yet, despite the anguish in her heart, Evelyn was resolute. The time had come to stand firmly, unwaveringly, against whatever storm Lisa was planning next. The days following Evelyn's confrontation with Lisa were marked by a tense silence within the house. Conversations were reduced to curt exchanges, each interaction layered thickly with unspoken resentment. Evelyn carefully monitored her personal documents, aware that her sense of security rested heavily on those papers. One afternoon, Evelyn received a call from Peter Reynolds, urgency evident in his voice. "Evelyn, I filed an injunction preventing any changes or transfers related to your property. It's imperative you keep your paperwork secured. Lisa's attorney contacted me this morning. They're aggressively pushing their case." Evelyn's heart skipped uncomfortably. "Peter, will this be enough?" "It strengthens our position," Peter reassured her gently. "Just remain vigilant." Later that evening, Evelyn found herself alone in the study, carefully sorting through documents once again. Each page represented a step closer to safeguarding her home. She was interrupted by a sudden sharp knock on the study door. "Come in," Evelyn called out cautiously. Lisa entered briskly, her face tense. "Evelyn, we need to settle this. Our attorney advised us that you've taken legal action. This situation has gone too far." Evelyn placed her documents down calmly, maintaining her composed demeanor. "Lisa, from the moment you handed me that eviction notice, the situation was already beyond reasonable." Lisa's eyes flashed sharply. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. We've offered alternatives." "Eviction isn't an alternative," Evelyn retorted quietly but firmly. "It's an ultimatum." Lisa bristled visibly, clenching her fists. "Fine, if this is how you want it. But remember, this was your choice, Evelyn." "My choice was to live peacefully in my own home," Evelyn replied calmly, her voice unwavering. "Your choice was to threaten that peace." Lisa turned sharply, slamming the door behind her with a loud thud, leaving Evelyn momentarily shaken but resolute. 2 days later, Evelyn received official notice from the court regarding a preliminary hearing. Anxiety twisted inside her, yet she held on to the strength she had built over recent weeks. Determined to remain composed, she immediately contacted Peter Reynolds to confirm their preparations. On the morning of the hearing, Evelyn dressed meticulously, choosing an outfit that exuded both dignity and determination. Michael and Lisa barely acknowledged her presence as they prepared to leave separately. The courtroom was intimidating, its heavy wooden benches and solemn atmosphere amplifying the gravity of her situation. As Evelyn took her seat beside Peter, Lisa's attorney, a sharp-eyed man named Edward Stanton, entered confidently, greeting Lisa warmly and casting a calculating glance in Evelyn's direction. The judge entered soon after, bringing the courtroom to attention. The proceedings commenced swiftly, with Stanton outlining Lisa and Michael's claims confidently. Evelyn listened carefully, her pulse quickening as Stanton described her presence in the home as temporary and her contributions minimal. Peter Reynolds stood firmly to present Evelyn's defense. He methodically laid out their evidence, highlighting Evelyn's substantial financial contributions and co-ownership documented clearly in legal agreements. "Your Honor," Peter addressed respectfully yet assertively, "Mrs. Evelyn Harris has every legal and ethical right to remain in her home. Her son and daughter-in-law's attempt to remove her without proper consideration or consultation is both unjust and unlawful." The judge listened intently, occasionally scribbling notes. Lisa shifted uneasily in her seat, her confident demeanor faltering slightly under Peter's compelling argument. "This preliminary hearing has presented significant claims from both sides," the judge finally stated. "Given the documentation provided by Mrs. Harris, I am inclined to grant a temporary injunction preventing her eviction pending further review." Evelyn exhaled slowly, relief washing over her even as Lisa stiffened visibly. Michael glanced over briefly, his eyes filled with conflicting emotions. Exiting the courtroom, Evelyn felt stronger, yet she remained cautious, aware the battle was not over. Lisa and Michael stood nearby, Stanton whispering urgently to them, clearly strategizing their next moves. Peter squeezed Evelyn's arm gently, offering reassurance. "We've taken a significant step today. Stay strong, Evelyn." Returning home later, the house felt quieter, colder than before. Lisa retreated upstairs immediately, while Michael lingered awkwardly in the hallway. "Mom," he began quietly, This isn't how I envisioned things." "Neither did I," Evelyn responded softly, yet firmly. "But sometimes, Michael, visions need adjustments." He nodded slowly, seemingly lost in his thoughts. "I hope we can find peace again someday." "Peace," Evelyn echoed softly, her voice tinged with quiet determination. "It begins with respect, Michael." She walked calmly to her room, closing the door softly behind her. Evelyn knew clearly that this fight had just begun. Yet, after today, she felt more prepared than ever to face whatever came next, knowing firmly that her rights and dignity would no longer be quietly surrendered. In the days following the hearing, the atmosphere within the house grew increasingly tense. Lisa kept mostly to herself, her previously confident demeanor replaced by quiet contemplation and sporadic bursts of frustration. Evelyn observed this change quietly, choosing her interactions carefully, remaining firm yet respectful. Michael appeared visibly shaken by the court's preliminary ruling. He spent less time at home, avoiding conversations that might lead to confrontation. Evelyn noticed his silent struggle, torn between loyalty to his wife and respect for his mother. Yet she held firm, understanding that sometimes true strength required difficult choices. One quiet evening, Evelyn sat alone by the living room window, reflecting on everything that had unfolded. The faint sound of footsteps broke her thoughts. Michael stood hesitantly in the doorway, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "Mom," he began softly, his voice laden with genuine regret, "I never meant for things to escalate this far. I'm sorry for everything that's happened." Evelyn looked at him steadily, sensing his sincere remorse. "Apologies are a start, Michael. But actions matter more." He nodded solemnly, taking a seat beside her. "Lisa is considering dropping the case. She's realized we may have been wrong to pursue this." "Have you realized it too?" Evelyn asked gently but firmly. Michael took a deep breath, meeting her gaze directly. "Yes. I allowed things to spiral, and I deeply regret it. This home means as much to you as it does to me." Evelyn felt a wave of relief but remained composed. "Then we'll need to see this through together. Legally, clearly, and respectfully." Michael agreed quietly, visibly relieved by her openness to reconciliation. Evelyn knew forgiveness wouldn't come immediately, but the path toward healing had begun. Days later, Lisa herself approached Evelyn, her demeanor surprisingly subdued and cautious. "Evelyn, could we talk briefly?" she asked tentatively. "Of course," Evelyn replied, keeping her tone neutral. Lisa sat opposite her, taking a moment to gather herself. "I've decided to withdraw our claim. It was wrong of us, to handle things the way we did." Evelyn studied Lisa's face carefully, sensing a rare sincerity. "I appreciate you saying that." Lisa hesitated before continuing. "I underestimated your resolve and your importance here. It wasn't fair, and I'm sorry." "Apology accepted," Evelyn said calmly, her voice firm yet forgiving. "But rebuilding trust will take time." Lisa nodded slowly, clearly understanding the gravity of Evelyn's words. "I'll respect whatever boundaries you set." In the subsequent weeks, the legal processes unfolded swiftly. Peter Reynolds efficiently handled the necessary paperwork, formally reinstating Evelyn's position clearly and unequivocally. Evelyn felt a deep sense of closure as she signed the final documents, officially confirming her rights and preserving her home. The atmosphere gradually improved. Conversations returned, cautious but sincere. Evelyn noticed small gestures, Lisa preparing meals thoughtfully, Michael sharing quiet conversations, subtle acknowledgments that healing had begun. One sunny afternoon, Evelyn stood in her cherished garden, tending carefully to her beloved flowers. Margaret approached with her familiar warm smile, holding another tray of freshly baked muffins. "Things seem peaceful again, Evelyn," Margaret observed warmly. "I'm glad." "Peace comes slowly," Evelyn agreed softly, "but it feels possible now." Margaret squeezed her friend's hand gently. "You showed remarkable strength." Evelyn smiled gently, looking around her garden thoughtfully. "Sometimes the hardest battles are worth fighting. This home represents far more than bricks and wood. It's my history, my memories, my life." Months passed, and a renewed harmony settled comfortably within the home. Michael's presence became more consistent, supportive, and respectful. Lisa, though cautious, genuinely attempted to rebuild her relationship with Evelyn, displaying humility previously unseen. One peaceful evening, the family gathered around the dinner table, laughter and conversation flowing naturally for the first time in months. Evelyn looked around, feeling deeply grateful for this hard-won peace. Michael raised his glass quietly. To family, understanding, and second chances. To respect and reconciliation, Lisa added softly, sincerity clear in her voice. Evelyn met each gaze steadily, her eyes filled with quiet strength and gentle hope. To home, she concluded firmly, her voice resonating deeply within the room. As glasses clinked softly, Evelyn felt profound relief. She had reclaimed her home, dignity, and the respect owed to her. The journey had tested her deeply, but ultimately it had restored something precious, a sense of belonging, resilience, and the unmistakable strength of standing her ground. Later that night, Evelyn sat quietly in her room, reflecting. The battle had been long and challenging, but it reaffirmed her strength and resolve. The home she had fought so fiercely to protect now felt truly hers again, respected and secure. Evelyn knew clearly now, no matter what the future held, she possessed the unwavering strength to face it.